Receive. There it is. It's being recorded. Keep in mind, if you guys could all switch your views to speaker view. So that would be in the right-hand corner. You will see something called gallery view or speaker view. That would allow us to focus on the person that is speaking as we are recording. And again, as I said before, the 30 people have reserved. I think there were a couple people, folks that maybe bought duplicates, but more people will be coming in. But to that end, we're going to move forward. You should have received an agenda from me that talks about what we're going to talk about. And essentially the objective of this, and I serve as a facilitator. So my name is Raina Spencer. I'm the Director of Government and Community Relations for Beyond Housing. This will wrap up our community conference, which started in early August. The first installment of our community conference began with a conversation about racial equity and racial the unrest, and we had an examination with Dr. Gena McClendon and Dr. Katrina Moore and Gerald Christmas, who kind of took us on a journey through what good protesting looks like, what being an impact through all of the unrest and the policy that surrounds it. And we followed up with a county executive forum, which is very fruitful. We were able to look at all of the candidates across all of the platforms. Then we moved into our community conference that was wrapped up by Congressman. Let me slow my roll. By Cori Bush. She was our featured speaker, and we had a great time with her. We had some very engaging workshops with very well respected panelists. And now we moved on to our 4 additional workshops. If you were in a regular in-person conference, what will happen is you would have a plenary, you would have a lunchtime speaker, and you will have workshops in between. So this is wrapping up those workshops at the end of your conference. This is the last workshop of your conference. And we are so happy to be here and talk about public safety in a timely subject like judges. So many people have asked, those who have gone to vote in person absentee, noticed that there were a lot of judges on the ballot and not knowing how to approach those judges, how to research them. So we came up with the idea, let's talk about that. And so what I want to do is first read off our panelists, introduce them. And because they're subject matter experts in their field, you can imagine that their bios are a little long. So I cut them up, or I use the shorter version. So forgive me for doing that. So we'll start with Judge Marvin Teer Jr., who is a resident of St. Louis, Missouri, and was appointed to the Board of Curators. This is your Lincoln, Missouri bio, Marvin. To the Board of Curators in 2006. He received his BS degree from Lincoln University and the JD from University of Missouri School of Law, Columbia, Missouri. He currently serves as an administrative law judge for the Missouri Department of Labor and Industrial Relations Divisions of Workers' Compensation. He previously served as the director and general counsel for the Office of Community Engagement in the Department of Economic Development. As senior counsel in the Office of the Governor, State of Missouri, as the St. Louis Municipal Judge for the City of St. Louis, as the Assistant Circuit Attorney, Homicide Division, City of St. Louis, and maintain a private law practice. Judge Teer has served as Assistant City Councilor, City of St. Louis, Assistant Attorney General, Special Prosecutor, Eastern District of Missouri Commission Counsel, Supreme Court of Missouri, Assistant Attorney General, Office of the Attorney General, Jefferson City, Missouri, and as a litigation attorney for a private law firm in St. Louis. Judge Teer is a member of the Missouri Bar Association, Metropolitan St. Louis, and the Mound City Bar Association. And you were a previous president? No? Yes?
Yep.
No?
Yes. Yep. 2005, 2006. Yeah.
Next, we have Dr. Gena Gunn McClendon, and I got this from WashU. Gena Gunn McClendon, PhD, is the director of the Voter Access and Engagement and the Financial Capability and Asset Building Initiative at the Center for Social Development. Her work primarily involves policy research analysis in consultation with the community-based programs, academic institutions, state and federal policymakers, and advocacy groups. Dr. McClendon's program development and policy advocacy work focuses on issues related to voter suppression and civic participation of low and moderate income households and marginalized population. Her research focuses on identifying and advancing practice and policy strategies that support an inclusive democracy and the professional training of social work students. She also leads the Financial Capability and Asset Building Initiative, which focuses on the development and research of a post-secondary curriculum in the financial social work. Other interest areas are the racial wealth gap and coalition development. Dr. McClendon earned a PhD in urban higher education from Jackson State University in Jackson, Mississippi. She received her master's in management and leadership from 𝗵𝗲 University in St. Louis and Bachelor of Science degree from 𝗁𝗂𝗶𝗰𝗀. And last but certainly not least, Krista S. Peyton is the General Counsel and Chief Contracting Officer for the St. Louis Housing Authority. She is responsible for litigation, real estate matters, landlord-tenant matters, contract negotiation, transactional matters, and leads the competitive procurement process. She provides counsel for the daily operations of administration of public housing and housing choice voucher, Section 8 programs. Ms. Peyton most recently served as an attorney in the legal department for the St. Louis County Family Court and represented the St. Louis County Juvenile Officer. Ms. Peyton was appointed as a provisional judge for the city of 𝗷𝗏, Missouri in October 2018. She is a native of St. Louis and attended Rosati Kane High School and completed her undergraduate work at Southeast Missouri State and earned a Bachelor of Science in Political Science. She completed her legal studies in 1995 in Syracuse University. During law school, Peyton completed a master's degree in political science at the Maxwell School of Government. She is an active member of 𝗯𝗲𝗶 Sorority Incorporated and enjoys participating in sorority-sponsored community service projects throughout the St. Louis area. She is a board member of Beyond Housing's Public Policy and Advocacy Council, serves on the board of 𝗵𝗲 University for the College of Education and Allied Health Professions. That is Miss Krista Peyton. All right, I said a mouthful. Those are your panelists for tonight. And so with that, we're going to go right into our agenda. Before I open up, do we have anybody else we need to let in? Nope. All right. Looking at our agenda, I will start with Krista. And one of the biggest questions that people ask, why are some judges appointed and others elected? I'll start with you, but please panelists jump in.
Okay, well, some judges in Missouri are elected versus appointed because Missouri follows what we call the nonpartisan plan. And so what's involved with that plan is that judges don't necessarily have to identify with a party. They don't have to raise money to run. They don't have to file as a typical candidate would. There's just a process for selecting our judges. There's good and bad, I think, with the nonpartisan plan. The idea of the nonpartisan plan is to try to minimize or keep out politics in the selection of our judges.
So with the appointment, does anybody else have anything to offer with that?
Yeah, I'll jump in. So the nonpartisan plan is one that is trying to establish even a national standard. Many times people have looked to the Missouri, what they call it, the Missouri plan. But the Missouri nonpartisan plan simply is a process by which you'll have the chief judge, a panel either at the lower division, associate circuit division, that's what most people come in contact with. The chief judge of the court of that circuit, and two lawyers elected by the lawyers that practice in that area. So St. Louis City, St. Louis County, that's two different commissions. The lawyers who practice in St. Louis County, they pick those two, and the lawyers in the city pick two. And then two people that are picked by the governor. They all have 6-year terms, so they're supposed to possibly overlap administrations. But those 5 people will be a commission or a committee that hears all of the applications. So let's say there's an opening in the city, 30 people apply, the committee picks 3. And it's from those 3 that the governor can pick anyone within 60 days. The governor fails to pick, then the commission gets to pick.
So what are some of the challenges? And I'm just going to follow up with both of you guys' explanation. What are some of the challenges with that system that we don't see as lay people?
Well, I think that part of the problem is with the nonpartisan plan, like Marvin described, you really only have 5 people that are really kind of deciding or picking who's going to be a judge. And so you in order to get on a panel, you really have to get 3 votes. Sometimes it will take more votes, but technically it takes 3 votes from the members of the commission to put someone on a panel. And so one problem or one issue that people have with the nonpartisan plan is that you really have those 5 people that Marvin talked about that are really deciding essentially who should be a judge. So you have the chief judge, you have the 2 lawyer members, and you have the 2 lay persons. And essentially the way the nonpartisan plan works is those 5 members meet and they decide on who's going to be on a panel, and then that panel goes to the governor. So one issue is that is someone that would actually be a good judge. If they can't get past that commission, they will never, ever essentially be appointed.
So the commission, in a small way, is the electoral process. So if you've got an open election in a city, you've got 250,000 people, half of those people, let's say, are eligible to vote. 125,000 people potentially could hear whoever wanted to run for judge. And that person who wanted to run for judge would have to file a campaign, get money, get a treasurer, but has to manifest in a lot of different ways. In a political way, I want to be a judge. But it's, in this case, you take money. Politics isn't out of it, but you do take money out of the equation. I think Krista probably remembers a number of years ago in Illinois, there was a battle between 2 Supreme Court judges, and the money just got obscene, and millions of dollars on who was going to be the next judge. And don't think money doesn't play a role in how you decide. So the nonpartisan plan takes money out of it, but politics, it still plays a part, because each of those applicants, let's say 35 people, well, they've got to go out and build a coalition of people who will lobby those 5 people, and it's political, to get them to have their vote. And it's just a smaller version in our microcosm. The problem is it can concentrate power in a very small percentage of people. But if you want to be a judge and you want to go through that process and are willing to do that, well, then that shows that you have a sincere and committed interest in wanting to have this position. Because I'm gonna tell you, you don't like going through that too much. But it's cool. I support the nonpartisan plan, and I've been a bridesmaid 3 times, but never bride. I'm a different type of judge, but I really think the universe has what you need, not necessarily what you want. You just don't see how much the universe is leading you that way. But that's another. But the plan, it's kind of jacked up, seriously, because people, you don't know that if you can't build a coalition of lawyers who write, and then once you get on the panel, then you've got to influence the governor. And that's a whole nother stack of letter writing and politics and everybody trying to lobby to get the judge to pick this one person. It works. Politics ain't fair, and politics in Missouri and St. Louis ain't much different, because the only difference here is sometimes your opponents use knives, but that's another subject.
Because it's a lot of involved information, I want to yield to the folks that are on the call. Is there anybody that has a question or would like to have a follow-up question to what you just heard about the process of appointing? No.
Well, I do.
Okay.
So, as I'm learning here too. So what was happening before the Missouri plan?
An election. It was an election, just like any other.
Just
Your
the other ones?
committeemen. Yeah, the last, Mike, I don't know if you remember, Mike Calvin and one of the younger Dowds, Judge Robert, I think Bobby Dowd,
Yeah.
were magistrates back in the late 80s, I think, somewhere in there, and they converted and they were elected by your community. Like when I was municipal judge in the city, the mayor picked me, and there were 4 of us with some, so they were the last of the cities. Jackson County has the nonpartisan plan, Springfield has it, and we in St. Louis City and St. Louis County have it. And then all of your appellate court, all your courts of appeal and your Supreme Court judges all have the nonpartisan plan. But they were the last 2 elected judges in this area.
Yeah, the plan actually dates back to the 1930s.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been around for a long time in terms of how Missouri, and it's actually a model plan. Many states have attempted to follow it and do follow the Missouri plan.
Okay.
You just always have to remember that in Missouri, our judges are appointed and retained by the voters. So you have to pay attention to the appointment process just as you would the retention vote.
Yeah.
I'm glad you said that, because our next question talks about the November ballot, right? So the November ballot, many people went to vote absentee or received their mail-in ballot and noticed that there were 20 or some odd judges that were up for retention. Okay, so first of all, we'll talk about how to research those judges, but what happens if they don't get retained? What does that mean? And why are we voting? Why are we voting now?
Because their terms end either December 31st or January 20, when this next term ends, when the governor's term ends. So associate judges have 4 years of retention. Circuit judges are 6. Court of Appeals judges are 8 years, and Supreme Court judges are 12 years. And they come around in that cycle and they're staggered. So I think it's 52 judges across the state and all the different circuits are up at all the different levels are up for retention. But we have 20 here. Most of them are your associate judges.
So Judge Teer, but that doesn't include the Chief Justice?
No, we don't. The Chief Justice so in the circuit, in the city there and the county, they're elected by the other judges. That's the presiding judge.
Yeah.
The chief judge is rotating in all the courts of appeals. They rotate every year, and they just do it as a matter of course, as courtesy.
Yeah.
And then the Supreme Court judges rotate every 2 years as a matter of courtesy.
Oh, so our current chief judge at the Supreme Court level
Is the chief judge.
Yes.
And they get 2 years.
And he's there for 2 years, and that's Judge George Draper.
Okay.
Yeah. But again, you're going to see staggered terms coming up for vote. They only need 1 vote over 50%. So it's a simple majority. And if they are retained, and most judges are, there have been 2 in the last year. Dale Hood was not retained, and unfortunately, Judge Judy Draper in the county wasn't retained, and that's a whole different story.
Yeah.
But one was deserving, one was not, but I'm not going to go yet. But anyway, it doesn't normally happen. You know, you just don't get that most people are retained, but their terms would end, I think, at the end of the year.
So we had someone ask, what constitutes retention?
Just you're good for another 4, 6, 8, 12 years.
Yeah.
You get to stay on the bench until your next retention vote comes up.
So do I understand this correctly? No more, there's no judges within Missouri that has to run.
Yes. Oh,
There
yeah,
are-
both of them.
Yeah, there are some circuits that actually elect judges, but by and large, most judicial circuits follow this plan where the bipartisan plan, where you are appointed and retained. But there are a few circuits, and I apologize, I don't know the actual names of those circuits.
They're all your
primarily-
outlying. They're all your outlying areas, Krista.
Yeah.
Like Boone County,
Yeah,
up north in St. Joe, St.
Yeah.
Charles. They run for
Yeah.
election
Oh, yeah.
in St. Charles.
yep.
Hmm.
So St. Charles actually have judges that still run traditional,
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. but not in St. Louis County.
No, not in St. Louis County.
No, or St. Louis City.
Okay. Okay. That's good to know and understand. Does anybody have any follow-up questions? What would you, I have another question. What would you change? What would you boot off?
What
In
would
this-
I change? Oh, you mean which judge?
No, what would get you kicked off? I mean, why wouldn't a person be?
I get it. Why wouldn't you get the retention vote? Well, there are, we'll probably talk about this later, but the attorneys all fill out surveys regarding the performance of the judges. And the surveys can be anything from like how you handled your docket to if you were fair and impartial. Like there's a list that the attorneys fill out on the judges. And based on those responses, then some judges, like he said, like 𝗹𝗶𝗀𝗀𝗀, based on those responses, then some folks were led to not vote to retain him. But
Next.
usually it's something pretty egregious because once you're on the bench, you're on the bench.
But you can be removed. I mean, don't get me wrong. If the Committee for Judicial Evaluation Retention, and I know that's not the perfect name, but there is a committee that reviews, the Supreme Court can pull a judge for something that is either illegal or unethical. You know, you can be removed, but that's a whole different process.
I have a question. How many votes do you need to be retained? Would it be majority?
Simple majority.
And that applies to the part where the judges sort of vote. They take a vote among their peers. Is that?
No. For like if I'm up for retention, all I need is one vote over whatever 50% is. So 50% plus one vote, a simple majority
From those voters.
of voters.
Okay.
So when you see on your ballot, should Judge, Marvin Teer be, and you won't see me, I'm not on the ballot, but if you see, should Judge Marvin Teer be retained, yes or no, you check yes, you check no. The question that I think Raina has come up with, and most people say, when I voted early not long ago, hey, who's so-and-so, mom? Somebody, it was a mother and son voting together, and he didn't know who they were. And many times people don't.
Exactly. So that's what we're going to get in after this first break. The first break we're going to lead into. Before I move on, is there anybody that has an additional question with regards to this process, retention versus election, and what that looks like? Okay. So Dwayne, you there?
I am here. So our first question for the trivia. How many Supreme Court justices are there?
I used to be the general counsel, so I can't answer that question.
You can answer that.
None
I
of
have
the
None of the
confused myself.
panelists can answer that.
Please write it in your box, in the chat box, or unmute yourself and let us know.
How many Supreme Court justices are there? Surprised no one has a question like, and you mean, are there currently, or are there, what's the maximum they can be on? I mean.
Yes. Yes. Anybody?
Anybody?
Nobody knows? Someone said 9. Is that correct? Be it judges and attorneys that's on the call?
Yeah, it's 9.
There we
It's
go.
9.
Congratulations, Miss Diane Jenkins.
I will
You
be
win
sending a gift card. Yay. And I'll send you a gift card. I know how to get a hold of you. So look for it in your email. All right. So with that, we're going to move on to, if you have your agenda, we're going to move into the second portion. So the big question, right? How do I find out if a judge is good or bad? So because we know there's no elected judges, no traditional election for judges in St. Louis City and St. Louis County, we're going to pivot to appointed. So how do I find out if a judge is good or bad? Dr. Gena Gunn McClendon, who supports and manages voter protection in our region, and this is her area. Can you give us some resources and kind of talk about how someone would approach their ballot with that in mind?
Well, thank you, Raina. It's pretty tricky. So when I first started doing this work, and I was going around to different candidate forums and things like that, and so I see this row of people sitting in the back, and I thought, well, who are they? So I finally figured out that they were judges, and so, but they didn't say anything. They just kind of sat there. And so I, started to investigate, and that's when I found out about the partisan versus the nonpartisan, and that they couldn't run for office, but they would get introduced by someone who actually, I think, worked for the Missouri Plan organization. And I remember getting a brochure that talked about all of the things that that plan does and ways you could do it. So I went to the website, and what's there is Missouri Judges, yourmissouriJudges.org. It's a great place. It talks about the Missouri Plan, what it does. There's a 10-minute video about why there is a Missouri Plan and the benefits of it, and how we are sort of in a good position because we have that compared to other states. So when you go to that page, there's a section where you can click on judges, learn more about judges. When you click on that link, it takes you to the different circuits. So like the 21st and the 20th circuit of city and the county. So when you click on that, it gives you a whole list, pictures of everyone that is running for judicial retention. So what's cool, the one cool thing, or a couple of cool things about this is that when you go and click on the person's picture who's running for retention, there's a bio, there's something that gives a little background, but what it doesn't do is give you any indication of what that person is doing until you scroll down a little bit farther, and there is a link there that goes to the jury survey, that goes to the lawyer survey, where you can click on that and just see how many votes or that people get. But then if you scroll down a little bit more, they have opinions that those judges have written. Now, what I don't know is which opinions are there, who makes the decisions on which opinions get put in, but they all have 3. The upside is that it's there. It's something. It's better than nothing, because a few years ago, all of that stuff wasn't there. The downside is if you're not familiar and comfortable with reading opinions, you're not real, you may not really understand what you're looking at. So that is the only thing that I know of that you can really do, find any research or get a sense of what that person stands for. Now, what I will say is that my question was, I wanted to know if that person leaned more Democrat or, and I know they're supposed to be impartial. And then I started thinking about the governors, whether they were Republican or Democrat that appointed them. So just because you're appointed, a judge is appointed by a Republican judge, a Republican governor, doesn't mean that they're not a good judge. So that's not a reason to not vote for people. So to me, the best thing you can do is just read those opinions, look at it, and just ask questions of people that you know. I think you can call that organization and try to get more information. Organizations like the League of Women Voters will do, like I said, will do candidate forums and invite those judges. And even though they don't get to say anything, that woman will, or the person that's with them will kind of introduce and let people know who those judges are. So, but I just heard and I haven't had a chance to investigate this, so I'm concerned about whether I should mention this or not, but I was just told that another place to look, and this literally just an hour ago, accidentally, that the ACLU, the ACLU may have some things about a judge and the bail project. But I took a quick scan before we got on the call. I didn't really see anything, but you may want to take a look there. But I'll turn this over to Judge Teer and Krista, because I'm sure they know a lot more about this. The other thing too, and here's my question to you guys, is when, with the jury survey, if you can talk a little more about what that means and the results of that. And then the other piece where their peers give a vote of confidence or not.
Really quickly before you jump in, if somebody wanted to pull the ballot, this I do know you were very knowledgeable at. How do they do that? Where do they go for those who don't even know that piece?
No, I didn't hear you.
Pull their sample ballot.
Pull their sample ballot. Well, because so for the St. Louis City, it's really simple. You go to the Board of Elections website, and there's a link you can click on, to the elections, and you can click on a sample ballot. And so there you see all of the different names. St. Louis County, it's trickier because of the on-demand ballots. So there isn't just, it's not necessarily real easy to find, but if you go to your Missouri judges.org, there you can see the judges that are up for reattention.
All right, Judge Teer and Krista, if you want to kind of expound upon how you do research and what are some of the implications by reading some of those opinions, and maybe there are some racial inequities also involved in that, possibly. So I'm gonna yield to you guys and kind of give us some more insight. Over to you.
I didn't know.
Yeah. So you got a lot of pieces to dissect. First of all, the opinions that are underneath each of the judges are opinions that they have been asked to provide, and they probably pick 3 that they put up there. Associate judges don't write opinions as much, depending upon what court you're in. So you may write some short orders, but you're generally not going to have lengthy opinions. Showing one's bias or political leaning or social leaning, judges just really stray away from that. You, as a judge, you can't help but your life experiences play a part as how you see someone. So I'm an administrative law judge, so I do credibility. I'm bartending, waited tables. Rana, I've done just about every job you can think of. So maybe that's how I see people, how I see your testimony, how reasonable it is. Does that make me lean one way or another? No, not. But the opinions that you read will give you some insight to whether they're, if you want to judge someone, whether they're erudite or verbose, or if they're short and to the point. Do they talk about theory a lot as opposed to just this factual present? You can get into that. But you're right, Professor. There really aren't very many other sources of information available other than what the Missouri Bar provides. And the jury survey is how a series of questions, jurors who have sat or a judge for a trial, a series of questions, and those questions are tabulated. And there are comments at the end, maybe that might be part of that might be added somewhere. And then the lawyer survey are just lawyers who are in front of that judge. And they can be positive, negative. Maybe you ruled against me. I'm gonna talk about you. You know, maybe you rule against me all the time. I'm gonna keep on talking about you. So it has that kind of flair to it. And Krista, I'll turn it over to you.
Well, I agree with everything that's been said. I just want to generate a couple of ideas. I think that one thing that folks can do to research the judges is to talk to lawyers, because we in front of the judges. So I always get calls and from family members and friends just asking me about the judges. I think the second piece of advice that I would tell voters is you really have to take some time to understand the different types of judges. So Marvin was talking about associate. People should know like what an associate judge does. You know, associate judges, they do landlord-tenant stuff. They do debt collection. They do misdemeanor criminal. You know, so circuit judges preside over, you know, trials. So you really, I think, have to have an in-depth understanding of the different types of judges. You know, appellate judges review decisions. They are generally a court of general jurisdiction. So anybody that wants an appeal will wind up in an appellate court, where court will pick and choose which cases they want to hear. So I think a big part of voters educating themselves is to really get a good understanding of the different types of judges. I think the other piece of advice that I would give in terms of picking judges is to become involved in how judges are picked. So when applicants, and we talked about the nonpartisan plan, when applicants apply, they all have to have a public interview. So anybody can sit on the public interview. So one good way of educating about who the judges are is to just participate in the selection process. And the only way a person that's in the public can do that is by attending public interviews. So those would be my suggestions to voters.
So public interviews. So how does one know about a public interview?
Yeah.
So
you would have to
go ahead.
go on to the website. So all judicial vacancies are advertised on the court's website. And once that
it's under publications, it's like news. Yep. You can usually go to the Eastern District, Western District, and Southern District. Each have their own individual website. And you have to know where to look, but it'll be news and vacancies and announcements. And there you'll read who's applied. They'll have a link to all the applicants. Yep. And they'll have their bios, and they'll tell you when the public hearing is.
Right. Now you can't ask questions of the applicants. You can't do that, but you can observe. And as an applicant myself, I'm always surprised at who actually shows up, you know, for the public interviews. But that's just one way that voters can educate themselves on who actually the judges are. I mean, that's just a suggestion.
So one of the other questions that I had kind of like attached on to that was the racial piece of it, right? So let's talk about racial inequity and where that shows up in this process. And I know that's loaded, so I'm gonna let either one of you go for it.
I'll take a quick stab at it. And there's a lot to unpack there. I think that what we're really talking about is systematic racism. I think that it kind of fits within that particular box. In terms of the lawyer evaluations, you have to think that traditionally, in large, the profession of lawyers is a white male dominated profession. So those are the folks that are by and large that are filling out the evaluation. So you may perhaps have implicit bias that enters into how lawyers fill those particular evaluations out. And if that's what voters are using as a measuring stick in terms of how they're going to cast their retention vote, then there has to be some conversation about that. And I'm just going to leave that right there.
So systemic racism is real. It's alive and as well. And within the thing that scares me the most, having been part of this process, is I am getting to do whatever I'm going to do next. And I've been doing this for 30 years. I graduated from law school. I went to Lincoln as an undergraduate and graduated from law school in 1989. And I don't see young, for me, as a Black male attorney, as a Black male judge, as the first Black male judge in my little space ever since the court was created in 1927, that those inequities are perpetual and perennial. They're just every year you see the same thing. But what bothers me is I don't see young brothers who are in the pipeline coming up. There's a couple out there that, have the criteria, been trial lawyers, have a little bit of a political backing, have some commitment and connectivity to your community so that you can get a political base or group base or ground roots base to support them. If they go to the governor's looking for, where am I getting votes from? What pastors are calling me, what community leaders are calling me, what lawyers are calling me. So, and that necessarily means that if you don't, as Krista's eloquently said, if you don't participate in the process, you're not going to know who these people are and what they stand for. But yeah, Raina, you're quite right. Race plays a part, and it's ever present.
That's a lot.
But I just refuse to. Damn it, there's nothing we can't do, and I need to see my young brothers doing this. And that's what I need to see, young lawyers out there fighting for this and being part of it and running for office, and that's the way it is. And that's how you succeed at it. You beat the system at its own game. So anyway.
So how as voters, how as community members, how do we hold our judges? How do we hold this process accountable? I know you said show up at interviews, so how can we be a conduit for information? Kind of let us know what are some very simple things that we can do to recap some of the information you shared.
I feel like everybody's looking for me. I would say that one way is to just go to the court's website. I think it's courts.mo.gov. And that's the website that puts out the judicial vacancies. And it has all of the applicants, and then it will even have some demographic information about how many minorities applied and how many women applied. So that may be a particular tool that voters can at least go to become a little bit more involved in the selection piece. And again, I would focus on becoming more involved in the selection piece on the front end, because it is difficult once a judge is on the bench to really lose their retention vote, because as Marvin said, it's rare that a judge will lose their retention vote. That's pretty rare occurrence. So if a voter wants to have any type of influence, they would have to try to do that on the front end of selecting judges, I would think.
You have anything to add, Judge Teer?
I think, and I've practiced in front of them, I've interviewed them, I've been part of a discussion when they are selected. They're friends of mine, they're colleagues of mine, they're classmates of mine. Not all of them, but I mean, overall, we've got an outstanding judiciary. But unfortunately, our system is such one that if you don't make it a point to know the information and find it out, then you are going to be left in the dark. And it's one of those rare things that none of these people politic. You don't see a commercial. People don't really talk about judges too much. We as lawyers are prohibited from making a public statement believe it or not, critical of a judge publicly, I mean, you could lose your law license. It's true, you know, but what you say privately and most, I'm gonna tell you, the judges are good judges. And they got there through, you know, really challenging circumstances. I'm not saying they're all good. I'm not saying they're all great. I'm not saying they all should still be there. But for the most part, they're really a great cadre of folks. They just really need to be more of us because it just doesn't look like us.
Okay. So with that, I'm going to open it up to any additional questions to our audience, and then we'll have one last trivia before we wrap up. And feel free to unmute if you have any additional questions. If you don't, that's fine. This video will be chopped up and reposted so you can kind of meditate on the information that you heard and share it with other folks. All right, going once, going twice. All right, Dwayne, let's get some more trivia going.
Which one do you want me to do? Which one do
The
you
names,
want me
do the names, because I
to do?
doubt it.
Names.
Yeah.
All right. All right. So we want you to name 3 current Supreme Court justices. The names of 3 current Supreme Court justices. Only 3. We said there was 9 spots. So now we just want the names of 3 of them. I couldn't do it. I'm hoping y'all could do it because I couldn't do it. I could come up with 2.
That's all I had. Feel free to unmute and yell them out as well.
3 of the current 8.
Don't be shy.
Judge Draper, Judge Stith, and Judge Powell.
Are those current?
Supreme Court justices for United States Supreme Court.
Oh, I thought you meant Missouri Supreme Court.
Oh, you know
Okay.
what? We're going to go ahead and give that to you. We're going to go ahead and give that to you.
Oh, yeah, the Supreme Court ones are pretty easy because we got Kavanaugh, we got I know the women. Kavanaugh, the Chief Justice Roberts, and the one
Thomas.
the ones in New York. I mean, the women in New York. The one who just wrote a book. What is her name? I know them. I know them.
Sotomayor?
Mayor.
Clarence Thomas.
Yeah, you're good. We got you, Cassandra. Why don't you do me a favor and put your email in the chat box specifically to me, and I'll send you out a gift card, or I'll find it from your registration, either way. And so you'll receive a $100 gift card from Amazon. Thank you for participating.
Thank you.
No problem. With that, if there are other folks on this call, do you have a question to you? You heard the bios, right? I ran out of breath talking about these bios. So you have subject matter expertise across the board. Dr. Gena McClendon does voter protection. So at this point, if you have any questions about casting your ballot, she's a great resource of anything. And one thing I do want to clarify, I keep getting this, and I'm gonna ask you this, Dr. McClendon, while I have you. There is this thing going around Facebook, social media. If someone writes on your ballot as you turn it in, should you stop and tell them to give you a new ballot?
Yeah, because the optical scan can't read anything other than the oval, what's in that oval circle. So no one should be writing on your ballot at all. And
Don't they make a notation, Professor, in the corner sometimes? And I'm just saying, or I remember this because I'm going to be out of town for the 3rd, so I voted downtown. And I thought there was something in the corner that said my precinct or my, you know, because I was voting at headquarters. I know that, but I'm just saying, I could be wrong on that.
I think they write on, don't they write on a little piece of paper that they hand to the person that gives you your ballot?
Right, so there shouldn't be any writing in the margins, on the side, anything like that. So some of the things that have been happening is that people will take their ballots, like if you got an absentee ballot, the one that I had, it's pretty big. So I could write a little note on the side if I wanted to. And people are doing things like go 𝗃𝗄𝗃. You know, we want, you know, that kind of stuff. And so the scanner can't read that. So those are mistakes that the voter makes. I just heard today about what you were referring to, Raina. So I would say outside of maybe in a corner, which Judge Teer might be referring to, there shouldn't be any kind of writing on the sides or anything of your ballot, because the scanner, you can't read it.
Yeah, I might be wrong about that.
No, you may be right. You know, that's possible, but I think what Raina was referring to is extra kind of stuff that people may do just to keep your ballot from being read. The other thing that's happening in some places is that they're calibrating election machines. Now, I haven't heard that here in Missouri, but they're doing that supposedly in Georgia, which means that those machines are only able to count so many ballots, and then it just stops. The things that are going on are just unheard of. So vote early. If you haven't voted already, go absentee. You don't have to do an application in advance to do it in person. Just get it done.
Okay. Any other questions for our panelists? All right. If not, I want to take a moment to thank you all. Thank you, Judge Marvin Teer. Thank you, Dr. Gena McClendon. Thank you, Krista Peyton. Again, this video will be chopped up and posted for videos, smaller videos, so you guys can look at some of the information once again. I hope that you guys glean good information and understand that we have some work to do as far as holding this process accountable. Think about it from a racial equity standpoint. Think about it just from understanding who is sitting on the bench. We have a little bit more work to do and some opportunity to make this easier for all of the voters in Missouri. So with that, if there is nothing else, I'm going to bid everyone a good night. God bless, and we will see each other soon.
Take care, Krista. Good to see you, Professor Raina. Always.
Nice to meet everybody. Thank you.
Take care now.
Bye-bye, guys.
Bye, likewise.
Bye,
Have a good
thank
evening.
you.
Bye, everyone.
Night.